Welcome to Stories from the Roof, the podcast that brings you tales from the most unexpected vantage point, rooftops. I'm your host, Megan Ellsworth, and on this show, we'll ascend to the top and explore the world through the eyes of those who live and work above. Join us on this unique journey as we uncover the stories, perspectives, and histories of roofing contractors. Let's begin our ascent onto the roof. Hi, everyone. My name is Megan Ellsworth here at rooferscoffeeshop.com, and we are on Stories from the Roof from Roofers Coffee Shop. I'm so excited to have John Chan with us here from the Durable Slate Company. So, hi, John. How are you?
Great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing fabulous. Excited to hear more about your story and your wisdom and insights in roofing. So, let's just dive in and have you introduce yourself.
Okay. Well, my name's John Chan. I'm one of the principals of the Durable Slate Company. We're a historic roofing company, so we work with natural slate, clay tile, and sheet metal, most of the sheet metal being copper. And we've been in business for, 38 years now, and we've done work all over the country and even some abroad.
That's so cool that you guys do work abroad. I think that's so fascinating. And I know last time you were on a podcast, we were talking about all the different quarries you've been to and slate things. So that's really cool. So let's go back to the very beginning. How did you get into roofing?
Well, it was actually a summer job for me. So I lived in Columbus, Ohio, but I went to school at UCLA. So when I came back to for the summers, I was looking for a job, and somebody told me about this construction job. I was saying, "Oh, that sounds great! I'll be working outside, getting a workout, getting a tan. It was good pay." So that's how I started. I was just cleaning up trash, cutting slate, carrying slate up and down a roof. And then, as the summers got to be more and more, a little bit more and more learning on the job, after several summers, I started tearing roofs off and cutting up like sheet metal for the guys. And yeah, it was a very low first rung of the ladder start.
That's awesome. I think that is a great start. And it's cool that you've always been in slate from day one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So, it's really interesting. After college, I came back and started full time. And at that time, all we did were slate repairs because, there was nobody really doing it. And then we started to get into the other historic roofs. It was actually kind of funny. One of our customers who had a lot of rental property down on campus, all of them were slate, so we always fixed her leaks. And she always tried to get us to work on our clay tile roof. And we said, well, we don't really do that. And that's how we got into tile, because she said, hey, I've had like 13 different people out here and nobody can fix my leak, and I need somebody to fix it. So that's how we got into clay tile and then eventually into sheet metal.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That's really interesting.
Yeah.
And I kind of love that it came from necessity almost.
It was really interesting because I didn't know much about clay tile roofs. And, when I first saw the pictures that she sent us, there weren't any tiles missing. So I was thinking, I wonder what's going on. So a friend of mine had another friend. His name was Ken McGee, and at one time he'd worked for Ludowici for a very long time. And in fact, his dad was the president of Ludowici. And so Ken started telling me all about tile, and he was telling me about all the nuances of the different tiles and why they leak and all the different aspects of clay tile. And I was like, this is really fascinating. And as I started finding out that as I talked to more and more people, I knew more about clay tile than most just from Ken. So yeah, that's kind of how we got into tile roofing.
Oh, that's awesome. That like literally ties right into our next question, which is, who taught you about roofing. So maybe tell us a little bit more about Ken and if there's anyone else.
Sure. Yeah. Well, the guy who started the company, Steve May, he's the guy that taught me about slate roofing originally. Told me about layout and headlap. And, when you tear off so much, you also learn how roofs were put together. And you also get to see what failed. And so then, like I said, I learned quite a bit from Ken. And then from Ken, I realized that salvage tile had a value. So we also started salvaging clay tile roofs. And in doing that process, I also saw why clay tile roofs failed. I saw the underlayments fail. I saw the flashings fail. And I saw what lasted and what didn't. And that was a really, really great introduction to roofing. It was tearing off all those old slate and tile roofs, and a lot of them also had sheet metal. They had turn or copper flat lock roofs or standing seam roofs and bay roofs, and you got to see all the different reasons why these old roofs failed and how long they took to fail. And so it was such an interesting process. So yeah, from Steve, I learned slate originally, and from Ken, I originally learned the clay tile. And I would say on the sheet metal side, we started doing a bunch of sheet metal, and we would sub it out to this company called Herman Jeffries Sheet Metal. And after a while, Herman just came to us and said, "Hey, I'm just doing all these jobs for you." He goes, "I've got an idea." He goes, "Why don't I just come work for you? I'll bring all my guys. You can buy my equipment. And that way I don't have to deal with all the headache of running a company." So we did. We bought all of Herman's equipment, and Herman and his son Ray and Jimmy and Kevin, and they all came to work for us. And it's actually kind of funny. That was back in 1992, and
wow.
His son Ray and one of his helpers, Jimmy, they still work for us today.
No way.
Yeah. So all the way back from 92, when Herman first came to work for us, we still have a couple of those guys.
Wow. Oh my gosh. Yeah. That's cool. Yeah. I love that legacy and having people there for so long. That's like 30 years. So amazing.
Yeah. So that's how we first got into sheet metal. And then, I learned a lot more about sheet metal back in 96. There was a guy named A.G. Zalal, and A.G. had a roofing company in Raleigh called Afghan Roofing. And he also imported equipment from Germany and Europe. And we decided to pay him a visit and then also go over to it was called the Dachenbahn back then. It was a roof and wall show in Germany.
Okay.
And we went to the Booker factory, and we actually purchased a Booker machine, which is trying to describe the machine, it's kind of like a ladder vader on steroids. So our Booker machine will hoist material up or down. I'm trying to think how tall it is. It's 137 feet. So it'll take 660 pounds, I believe it is, up or down that distance, and also has a knuckle on it, so you can angle it to the pitch of your roof. So you can haul your slate up or your plywood or your underlayment, and then you can also haul all the slate down that you're tearing off. So it was a fabulous machine, and AG introduced me to the folding techniques that they use over in Europe that they're not very common over here. So, he's kind of almost like the grandfather of European roofing here in the U.S. to a certain degree. So, I bought a lot of those different types of snips and bending tools that he was the only one that carried them back then. You know, that was
Wow.
1996. Yeah. So, and then his brother also taught me in his shop how to, you know, make folds around the chimney and whatnot. And so, yeah, I picked up a lot of different things from different people through the years.
My favorite thing about you kind of telling your story just then was that you had a smile on your face like the whole time. And just that's what I love about this podcast and sharing people's stories and kind of looking back on this great career that you've had and will continue to have. So thanks for sharing. I thought that's great.
Oh, you're welcome. It's always great to learn all the different things from different people because, you know, so many different people have so many different backgrounds and things that they've learned through the years. And it's fabulous just getting all that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So kind of going off of, you know, wisdom and knowledge that you gather, what is one of the most valuable lessons you've learned about roofing or, you know, business throughout your career?
Well, you know, that's an interesting thing. I think it was basically learning how to relate to people. So, you know, early in my career, I was trained up by my brother who was, you know, running the company at the time. And I saw how he would shift gears because we worked in a lot of different neighborhoods. You know, some of the neighborhoods were very, very affluent. And some of these neighborhoods were, they were really, really old, not so great neighborhoods. You know, they were great way back in the day and, you know, 1910 or something like that. But, you know, a lot of the houses were dilapidated. You know, the homeowners were, you know, barely hanging on to try and fix their slate roofs. And, you know, sometimes we'd be dealing with architects or, you know, in my case, a lot of roofers where we're tearing off these old roofs. So what I really learned was how to deal with everybody and treat them with respect and be able to communicate with people and really, you know, just get to understand people so that you can, you know, achieve your goals of whether it's sales or recruiting or whatever it is, that you treat people with great respect and being able to handle things with communication.
Absolutely. Communication is truly like key, paramount, step number one. And also like respect. I couldn't agree more with what you just said. So if you were to go back to the start, to the beginning of your career, you're tearing off slate roofs, what would you do differently, if anything?
Gosh. You know, probably one of the things I would have done was, you know, when I went over to Germany in 96 and, you know, got a taste of the European folds and some of the European techniques and also green roofing, we probably would have implemented some of that right away because it was a tough thing. You know, when I came back and I was showing all of our sheet metal guys all these really cool ways to flash around the chimney and to do valleys differently, it really upset the apple cart, and nobody really wanted to do it. I probably should have just insisted on them at least learning because, you know, I'm not one of those guys that say we have to do it a certain way, but there's a lot of different ways to do flashings or whatever, but there's always a best way. And so not everything has to be done in a European fold and not everything has to be soldered. But you know, there's certain times where you want to fold and there's certain times where you want to solder. And I think that sometimes Europeans get so proud of the folding, they want to fold everything. And then the Americans, they look at the folding and it's like, oh, that's crazy. I just solder it. But there's certain times, where you have to do one method or the other. And I can think of an example right now. We just did the clocks around the Logan County Courthouse in Lincoln, Illinois. Lincoln is named after Abe Lincoln because he actually used to practice law there. Not in that building. That building's a little bit newer, but he practiced law in the old courthouse.
Wow.
And these clocks are they're about 13 feet. That's just a guess, wide. And the copper roofs there consistently failed. And the reason is when you solder completely around the round clock like that, that's a huge solder joint. You know? So the sun hits it, it expands, it goes beyond the horizon and it shrinks and it comes back out and, it's beaming on one side. So one side's expanding greatly and the other side is still cool because it's, winter time and it's not expanded. And, all that shifting tears those solder joints apart. So what we did was we put in pleated valleys and what pleated valleys are is if you can think of kind of like an accordion, you take your valley and you just fold it and you fold it in a way to wrap it around the clock. And then you just lock that valley onto your standing seam panels. And when it gets hot, it acts like an accordion and just expands. And then when it gets cold, it shrinks. And it doesn't break any of the solder joints because nothing's soldered, right?
Yeah.
We have that same thing going on. We're just starting a dome in Baltimore at Davidge Hall. This building is the oldest medical instructional building in the U.S. that's still standing.
Wow.
And it's for the University of Maryland. And it was originally copper. They've replaced it with copper a few times. And then I want to say it was in the 70s, they decided to replace it with a wood roof because that copper dome kept leaking. They couldn't stop the leaks from occurring. And then it got re-roofed again in the 90s, again with wood because they were afraid of the leaks. And finally, an architect was saying, well, it was copper for well over 100 years. Why can't we put it back on in copper? Mm-hmm. And so in the consulting process, we came up with ways that it can be done. And the thing of it is that any large copper dome like that, the copper has got to be able to move. So you've got to put something like copper shingles on it or copper standing seam panels where each of the fixed points can stay independent of the other fixed points. So like in the Lincoln job, you had those 4 huge clocks. Well, those clocks, they're not going to move, right? So you've got to have any fixed points within that working independently so that the copper can move when it gets hot and cold. And so on Davidge Hall, we're going to do that. We're going to use pinch seams on certain parts of it to allow for that dome to be able to move. We're doing another one in Louisiana right now. It's another dome that has these copper clocks on them. And, that's a huge problem when these big copper domes or steeples or whatnot, they get hot and cold and it just tears them apart. So, I think going back to your original question of what I would have done differently is, number one is I would have insisted that our sheet metal guys learn all of those techniques way back then. Yeah. And so that we could have an option of we want to solder here, we want to fold here. Because some places you definitely want to solder. We did a big copper roof in Georgetown. In fact, that building is supposedly where George Washington and L'Enfant planned out the entire city.
Oh, whoa.
So yeah, it's a very historic building, and it's got a big low-pitched copper roof on it. And what's changed over the years is that it's become a restaurant. So they put all these air handlers and HVAC systems on top of the roof that weren't there back in the 1700s, So all of those points are fixed. So what we did was we put a series of standing seam panels and pinch seams, and then where it gets very low pitched, we put in soldered panels, kind of like a bathtub. But all those bathtubs, they're all soldered together, but all the standing seam is locked into those so that the roof can float. But the places that receive so much water that they fill up, they'll fill up and they'll be watertight because they're all soldered together. So there's things that you have to do like that, and that's one of the things that we would have done back then. And then also the green roofs. I find those fascinating. They've been doing those in Europe. Yeah, they've been doing them for a really long time. And, we talked about doing it, but it was just kind of a thing of, we don't really do that type of flat roofing.
Yep.
But, it would have been, we would have been really on the cutting edge doing it in 1996, So those are probably the two things that I would have done differently. But, to be honest, I'm not sure exactly how we would have done that because we didn't really have the personnel to do it at that time.
Yeah. Yeah. Because it's always, it's good to be realistic for sure. I think the accordion metaphor you had, that was so interesting. And also, I would love more green roofs. I think they're so fascinating. Like you said, I wish I had a green roof and like a little garden on my house. That'd be so fun. But yeah, we definitely have different building techniques here than over in Europe where there are more green roofs. So maybe one day we'll get more around.
Yeah, I think it's inevitable because they're so good from so many reasons. When you get a torrential downpour, for instance, if you have a bunch of green roofs, you won't get flooding because the rain gets absorbed in those roofs, and it's a slow siphoning down, or whatever you want to call it, of all of that water, so you don't get that inundation of water. Another thing is, with all of the extra green, it helps the environment. So there's a lot of great reasons for a green roof. And, I was just over in Edinburgh, when was that, a month or two ago, and in our hotel, we were staying on the 5th floor, and you go out and there's this courtyard and there's all these trees and grass and bushes, and you would think that you're outside in a park, but it's just the center courtyard and you're on top of a building right downtown Edinburgh. Yeah.
That's super cool. And so nice too, to be able to have that like outside your hotel room. That's so nice.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, next question. What is the best thing you've ever done for your business or career?
Gosh. Oh, that's a hard one.
Toughie.
Best thing. I would say the implementation of Hubbard management technology, because it's really allowed us to compartmentalize things and organize things so that we function really, really well, and it's not so chaotic. Because if you think about it, we've got, like, to be honest, I'm not exactly sure on the number, but somewhere around 150 employees. They're all around the country. We've got a project going on in Bosnia right now. So they're spread out all over. I mean, we just started a job in Helena, Montana. We've got stuff going on all over. And basically it's given us the organizational skills to have all these different things going on and keep our wits about us. So I think that's fabulous.
Yeah, I do too. I mean, to have one job in Helena, another in Bosnia, that really goes to show the management of all the different moving parts that you have. And yeah, that's great. Oh my gosh. So in one word, describe the most important trait in a coworker or an employee.
It would probably be like willingness or maybe desire, because as long as they've got that, you can train them on everything else. Yep. You can train them on how to, repair a slate. You can train them on how to, fold up a pleated valley, or you can train them on how to lay out a tile roof. That's the funny thing. It's like we have guys that are really good at certain things and maybe not so good at other things, but if they've got that willingness to learn, we've really implemented a lot of good training techniques to teach people, even if it takes them a long time. At the end of it, they'll get it. So that willingness and desire to succeed really supersedes all, because you can really mold a person and give them all the knowledge that they need to succeed if they've got that. If they're apathetic towards it, obviously they're not going to get very far. So right. A lot of people might say intelligence or whatever, but if you've just got that willingness and desire, we can get the training right to get the person going.
Yes, I completely agree with that. Much more than a virtual assistant, answering calls, scheduling appointments, customer intake, payment collection, and more, Ruby does it all so busy contractors don't have to. As a member of the Roofers Coffee Shop community, you can use code RCS100 to save $100 on your first 3 months with Ruby. Take $100 off your first 3 months with Ruby by using coupon code RCS100. So, who is the best boss you've ever had, and what did they teach you?
Well, it's kind of a funny thing. I really only had one boss. It was my brother. So when I came in to work at Durable, he was running the company, and basically I just learned one thing at a time and did different posts. And like I said, probably the best thing that he taught me was, communication, like I said. Yeah. Being able to communicate and handle people and make sure that things go right. That's so invaluable, and also it has to do with communication also, but being able to get a person excited about what you're talking about. So, whether it's recruiting somebody to come to your company, or selling a customer, or selling your crew on doing the right thing and training and all of that, that's all a part of communication. And it's like getting people excited was something that he was always really good at. I remember going back when I was brought into the company. I just finished college at UCLA, economics degree. I had all kinds of interesting job offers, and but instead I went back to Columbus, Ohio, and started off, basically as a laborer in the company, earning very little money, but the picture of a future that he painted for me was very bright. And, when I looked at it, I was just like, yeah, that could be done. That could be done. And that's one of the traits that he really has. He's really good at, and it's by communicating a rosy future that you would have to put your 2 feet in to make sure that it happened that way. But being able to convey that, and so I watched him, convey that to customers, convey that to prospective employees, and gosh, in the start, he was so good at getting top-notch talent into our company. And and as I observed that, I was just like, wow, that's really something. It's just a offshoot, sort of say, of communication, but that's something that I really picked up from him and really saw how to do that. And it's really by, really being upfront, understanding people, treating them with respect, and, really granting them all of their, space and what they want to say, and really getting their viewpoint on something, and then, kind of like putting in your 2 cents on how the two of you can come to a good solution about something. And it's really, really cool what I picked up from him, and that's probably the biggest thing.
Aw, that is so special. I work with my big brother too, and so
Cool.
I know the pain and the love. That's really special, I think, a special experience. And to get to learn from a sibling also, like outside of, being siblings, is really cool too.
Right.
So we only have a couple questions left. You've been slaying these questions. What makes you smile when you think about your job?
Well, it's just really exciting and rewarding. What we do is much, much different than most other roofing companies.
Yeah.
I've been approached because we're so specialized, I've been approached by various people to do other things, like commercial flat roofing, storm work, oh, there's so much money in this. If I show you how to do this, you got, and, all of that stuff, doesn't interest me at all. That's the funniest thing. It's like, I don't doubt or discount that you could make more money or whatever, but it's the excitement of restoring these unbelievably iconic buildings from all over the U.S. I mean, we've worked on a number of different presidents' homes, or their places. We did Roosevelt's ranch out in North Dakota,
Wow.
Lincoln's birthplace in Kentucky, a number of the presidential homes in Ohio and
Wow.
Indiana, a number of embassies and very historic properties and government buildings in Washington, D.C., pre-revolutionary homes in Virginia and South Carolina, New Orleans. I mean,
Wow.
we've worked on such iconic buildings and restored the beauty back to so many of them. And also just that we've done it all over the place. We've worked in, gosh, I don't know, 35, 38, I don't know the number. It's well over 30 states in the U.S. and as well, as I said, like abroad, and working on, things like the House of Parliament in Trinidad, or doing that really cool place in Lima, Peru, and just doing all that type of work, and also just exploring all those places, being able to go to all these different places, like Lima, Peru. When we were there, we got to go to Machu Picchu, and
Wow.
Lima is such an interesting place because I don't think it is anymore, but at one time it had 3 of the top 10 restaurants in the world. The
Oh,
number one
wow.
restaurant in the world right now is in Lima, Peru, and we tried them all, and it's just really cool, checking out all the different cultures, and also just all the different quarries and everything I visited. I've
Yeah.
visited pretty much every single quarry in the United States, in New York, Vermont, Pennsylvania, Virginia, even some of the quarries that are defunct, like Peach Bottom, that they went out of business in the 50s, and we still did a thing there, and
Wow.
all the different quarries in Spain, the different Koopa quarries, Matacuda, Labanya, Hebra, all the different quarries there, Del Castillo, and even into Wales, the Welsh quarries, Penryn, Cwdab, and even down the UK, down in Cornwall, Delaval, just going to all these different places, and even the tile and metal too. Just a few months ago, we visited VM Zinc over there in France, and we did the Las Candela factory. They're the largest tile manufacturer in the world. They're in
Whoa.
Alicante, Spain. So, yeah, like I said, it's just so exciting to A, restore all these beautiful places, B, visit all these unbelievable places all over the world, and also meet all these different people, because we've been to a number of the international shows. One of our copper projects won the IFD, or the International Federation for Roofing Contractors Award, for the top sheet metal project. That was in
Wow.
Edinburgh. So yes, and we've met so many great people that are doing fabulous work from all around the world. So it's always been really exciting. I guess that's what keeps the smile on my face, and makes things exciting, because not only do we get to restore these amazing places, but we get to visit all these fabulous sites from around the world, and dabble into their culture and their food and everything else.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that is such a highlight. I can only imagine going to all these different places and also seeing the different architecture types and styles of roofs and building structures and all sorts of stuff. So keeps you on your toes, and like you said, keeps the smile there. It's never fading. I love it. Mm.
Yeah,
Um
some of these places are just incredible. Like in Istanbul, there's places that were built in like 500 or 600, and
yeah.
it's it's like 1700 years old, and it's still in good shape, and it's just fascinating.
Yeah, no, it's incredible. That's so special. That's something super special about the Durable Slate Company. Everything you guys do, um, on our homeland here and then overseas. I think that's so cool. So we somehow have got to the last question. This went by so quickly.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and that is, how long have you been following Roofer's Coffee Shop? And what's your favorite thing about RCS?
RCS has changed a lot since I first found out about. When I first found out about it, I want to say it was back in the early 90s.
Mm,
Um, and I just thought of it as like a classified ad.
yep.
And what I found in it was places to buy old machinery, or somebody was selling like old slate or tile. And that's basically what I used it for. I didn't really know exactly what it was other than that.
Yeah.
Then I want to say, gosh, I can't remember exactly when it was. I met Heidi at an event somewhere. And then, you guys started popping up all over the place, in social media, the different events. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I remember these guys way back, it's got to have been like 30 years ago or something.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just trying to think because I purchased things from people. I think most of it was reclaimed slate and tile. I might have even gotten, I was talking about the Booker machine that we purchased when we went to Germany. I think that's where I also purchased. We have a pause machine. They're two different companies, but they make very similar equipment. It's a lift that takes material up and down. And, there's no such maker in the U.S., so you've got to get it from Germany. Yeah. And there was a guy that had one that he used for like 2 projects, and he said, hey, I've got no use for this. So he had it on sale, and I was just like, wow, that's like half price. I was just like, okay. So, I had a friend look at it for me. It was out in L.A., and he looked at it and said, hey, it looks like it runs. Don't know how much work you'll need. I'm like, well, at that price, we'll just buy it, send it to the manufacturer, and get it all tuned up. And so it's been real helpful because, that's a funny thing about that type of machinery. A lot of times you don't use it, just sits in your yard. But then sometimes you need one plus the other, and then you could use the third one. So that's where I've used Roofers Coffee Shop in the past. And, what I think of it now is I think it's fabulous because you guys get to a lot of the different conventions and get out on social media, and people can see what everybody's doing. I invited Heidi to our event for the National Slate Association. So the National Slate Association is having a conference the last week of October in Charleston. And I thought it would be really cool for Heidi to come and speak about Roofers Coffee Shop. So, she's going to do that. And
Yay.
So it's just really, it's really great seeing you guys everywhere. And it helps keep the industry all connected. So, it's fabulous.
I'm so glad to hear. Thank you for your kind words. And I'm so happy that we can be this place for community and bringing people together. I'm just so happy to hear that. So thank you for sharing.
Yeah. So,
yay!
Yeah, it's been great what you guys do.
Yay! I'm so glad.
Yeah.
Well, John, this has been an absolutely amazing podcast. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your story, and just your experience in the roofing industry. You have so much to share. So thank you.
You're welcome. It's been great being here.
Amazing. Hopefully we'll have you on another podcast soon. For everyone out there listening, you can go learn more about the Durable Slate Company on rooferscoffeeshop.com on their directory. You can also find them on askaroofer.com. And make sure you are subscribed and get notified every time Stories from the Roof uploads a new episode. And we'll be seeing you next time on the next Stories from the Roof. If you've enjoyed these unique rooftop stories, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single episode. Go to rooferscoffeeshop.com to learn more. Thanks for soaring with us on Stories from the Roof. We'll catch you on the next one.